Hello and welcome to another series of video tutorial on JavaScript. Today we will take a look at brief introduction about JavaScript. What is JavaScript and why do we need it? A JavaScript is a scripting language which adds interactivity to web pages. On day-to-day basis, you might have visited several websites and most of the websites will be interactive. And the JavaScript makes that particular web page interactive. Whenever we talk about web page, we have three components. One is HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. HTML is nothing but a markup language which defines the static content of a page. And whenever we include JavaScript within that HTML by using script tag, then that particular web page will become interactive. For example, you might have seen alerts or error messages, or if you haven't filled in proper username and password, it prompts you for using specific character sets and combination of character sets. So these are all possible because of JavaScript. And there is another component which is nothing but cascading style sheet, which is CSS, which is used for beautification of that particular HTML page. Okay, some of the examples are like, as I said, checking the forms whether you have filled in correctly or not, whether the mandatory fields are filled in correctly or not. You can add special effects to a particular web page, and any dynamic content you want to see on a web page, you can add it with the help of JavaScript. And these dynamic contents or interactive components on a web page is processed and executed by JavaScript interpreter. Here, JavaScript is a language which is an interpreted language. That means it executes the instructions directly. There is no compiler with JavaScript. Okay. JavaScript is an interpreted, as I said, it directly executes the instructions and it is an object-oriented language. The object-oriented concepts are similar to your Java, C#, or C++, which we will see in the later section. As well as JavaScript is case sensitive. So let us look at why we use JavaScript. In recent times, as you have seen, with the evolution of web, there are more contents being provided online. Even though the JavaScript was developed in 1995, but it has gained popularity in recent few years because of evolution of the web and the contents which are provided on the web. Earlier, it was only a scripting language which was on the client side. Now, the same JavaScript can be used on the server side also. By using JavaScript, we can develop front end, back end, or both. It can be used to develop mobile application and also game development. Let us look at history of JavaScript. JavaScript was developed by Brendan Eich in 1995 which appeared in Netscape browser for the first time. Okay, as Chrome is the most popular browser now, in 1995, Netscape was one of the few browsers which was available, and Brendan Eich developed this JavaScript for a Netscape browser. Earlier it was called LiveScript, later it was renamed to JavaScript. Since JavaScript is the most popular language and this language is supported by most of the modern browsers, and most of these browsers will have a JavaScript engine which comes with the browser. Okay. As I said, this is one of the most popular programming language today because of popularity of the web. It doesn't matter whether you are into development or into testing, the knowledge of JavaScript will give an edge to any IT professional. Since we have learned about history and what is JavaScript and why JavaScript, so let us look at what is ECMAScript. ECMA is nothing but European Computer Manufacturers Association. ECMA is an organization which defines the standard for JavaScript. Since JavaScript is used by most of the modern browsers, there was a need for some standardization across all these browsers. So ECMA is an organization which builds these standards, and all the browser vendors must adhere to this ECMAScript. And the current version of ECMA is ECMA 6 or ES6. It is also called ES6 standard. And most of the modern browsers today supports ECMAScript 5.1. As I said, the current version is ECMA 6, which is ES6. So this is what we are going to learn in this series. ES6 is what is covered in this course. Earlier we had talked about HTML, JavaScript and CSS. Inside HTML, the JavaScripts are written using this script tag, or it can be written in a .js file. Okay, what is the difference between a JavaScript and a ECMAScript? JavaScript is a language which conforms to ECMA standard. So that is why it is either called JavaScript or ECMAScript, since JavaScript is adhering to these ECMA standards. There are several JavaScript libraries and frameworks available today, which can be used for either front-end or mobile and game development. Some of the popular ones are AngularJS, which is a framework developed by Google, React.js, which is a library which is used within Facebook. Okay, there is a Vue.js, there is Bootstrap, and there is a jQuery library, and so on. By using any of these frameworks or libraries, we can have much more interactive web pages. As I mentioned earlier, that Google Chrome ships a JavaScript engine along with Chrome browser. I have opened up Chrome browser here, and if you look at, after opening the browser, you need to go to developer tools, like more tools and developer tools, and this is the window which opens up from the developer tool. And by default it goes to elements. You have to select console to run any JavaScript here. For example, console.log hello world. Okay, this will print hello world here. Since this browser has got JavaScript engine, it interprets this instruction and it prints, or it takes action accordingly. Okay, for example, I want to have a pop-up window, alert, something went wrong. Okay, as soon as I hit enter here, it brings an alert window and prints something went wrong here. We can also use this console to write JavaScript programs here. However, for this course, we are going to make use of Visual Studio Code. How to get Visual Studio Code and how to install Node.js, we will cover that in the upcoming sessions. That is the end of this session. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.